some motorcycles weren't made for everyone. They were designed for the brave, the crazy, or for those who had no idea what they were getting into. In this video, you're going to discover the most dangerous motorcycles in history. Machines so fast, unstable, or wild that they often became legends and sometimes ended in tragedy. Are you ready to hop on the madness of two wheels? Because this is not for the faint of heart. To understand why there was a time when riding a motorcycle was an extreme sport, even in the city, you have to hop in a time machine and land smack in the middle of the 70s and 80s. An era where safety was an afterthought, marketing was all about horsepower, and the only rule was to be faster than everyone else or die trying. Back then, the brands were out of control, like they downed a liter of gasoline mixed with adrenaline. Kawasaki, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda. They all wanted to have the wildest, the most brutal, the one that would leave your pupils dilated and your heart about to burst. It was a time when power wasn't measured by responsibility, but by how many people survived the first twist of the throttle. MotoGP was Olympus, the place where the gods of two wheels played with physics like it was Play-Doh. And of course, every fan wanted a piece of that hell in their own garage. That's how the concept of the street replica was born. But it wasn't a replica like the ones today, loaded with 1,000 sensors, ABS, traction control, and even a rain mode. No, those were replicas taken to the extreme. It was like they were selling you a race bike with mirrors. In those days, electronic aids were nothing more than science fiction, and the only traction controls were your steady right hand and the pair of tight pants. Didn't know how to handle a 90 horsepower bike with a bicycle frame? That was your problem. No one was going to save you. Either you knew how to ride, or you'd end up flying off the bike like you'd been hit by a tornado. And that's when the wildest ones were born. The bikes that weren't made to please you, but to dominate you. The ones that demanded absolute respect, total focus, and balls of steel. Because if you got cocky, you didn't just fall, they'd spit you onto the ground with contempt. Like saying, "Who do you think you are, getting on me without respect, you scoundrel?" That era left scars. Some real, others emotional. But it also left legends. Myths of steel and oil that we remember today, not just for their speed, but for their ability to separate true riders from mere enthusiasts. In the 80s, Honda was feeling bold, breaking records, winning on the track, and wanting to prove they could make fast bikes in any style. Sport? Done. Touring? That too. Custom? You got it. And that's how this madness was born. A cruiser with the soul of a superbike. Honda took its brutal 1100cc V4 engine, a beast that was already over the top on its own, and fit it into a custom bike frame. The result was the V65 Magna, a machine with over 110 horsepower, capable of going from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 2.9 seconds. Yes, in under 3 seconds. At the time, it was the fastest production motorcycle in the world. And that was without a fairing, without aerodynamics, without ABS, without traction control, and with handlebars that looked like a garden pergola. Now, just imagine that. A wild engine with massive torque, stuffed into a long chassis with a laid-back fork, designed for cruising down the highway listening to classic rock, not for twisting the throttle like it's a sport bike. The steering geometry wasn't even close to being ready for that kind of power. If you twisted the throttle hard, the bike would definitely let you know. Wobbling, vibrations, and a front end that danced more than you do at a bachelor party. And don't even get me started on the suspension. They weren't bad, but they just couldn't handle that much weight being thrown around with such fury. The front brake was begging for help. And all of this together made for a bike that felt more like a chrome-plated game of Russian roulette than a laid-back cruiser. The press at the time praised it for its brutality, but before long, accident reports started piling up. Riders who didn't know what they were getting into, or who underestimated the beast disguised as a custom, ended up in bad shape or flat out laid out on the road. Honda knew it, and that's why, over time, they had to reduce the engine's power and smooth out its delivery so it wouldn't keep claiming victims. And that's the point. The V65 Magna wasn't dangerous just because it was fast. It was dangerous because it was deceptive, because it made you think you could tame it with one hand and a coffee in the other, until it caught you off guard and reminded you that you were riding a stick of dynamite on wheels. In 1972, Kawasaki looked at the world, raised an eyebrow, and said, "You want power? Here's your power." That's how the H2750 was born, also known as the Mach 4, one of the most feared, brutal, and untamable motorcycles of all time. What did this beast have? It featured an inline 3-cylinder, 748 cubic centimeter, 2-stroke, air-cooled engine that was capable of producing 74 horsepower. This was on a bike that weighed just 192 kilos in its full ready-to-ride condition. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. In the 70s, with bicycle tires and wooden brakes. And why was it so dangerous? Because the power hit you like a punch from Tyson. You'd be cruising in third gear, nice and easy, and suddenly, bam, the power band would kick in and launch you toward the horizon without asking for permission. The brakes were drum brakes on the rear wheel. Yes, drum brakes. The frame was as stiff as a wet branch, and the suspension felt like it was made from pen springs. The result? A bike that twisted, bounced, skidded, and fishtailed like an angry bull. But in a straight line, it was an intercontinental missile on 2 wheels. It had no shortage of nicknames: Widowmaker, Widow Creator, Green Kamikaze, Death on Wheels. And yet, it was a hit. Why? Because it was thrilling, wild, addictive. This wasn't a bike for living a quiet life. It was a bike for living on the edge. The H2750 left an indelible mark. It was the first time a street bike had performance on par with racing bikes, with no compromises. It terrified a whole generation and at the same time made them fall in love. It was the beginning of the end for bikes with no common sense. After the H2, a lot of brands started taking stability, brakes, and safety more seriously. But that magical moment, that glorious chaos, was brought by Kawasaki in the 1970s with the H2. And while Kawasaki was launching its Widowmaker, Yamaha wasn't far behind. They released a series that had nothing to envy. 2 letters, 2-stroke, 3 machines that could ruin your week. The Yamaha RDs. While other brands were investing in making comfortable, stable bikes designed to last for decades, Yamaha grabbed a beer, kicked over the chalkboard, and said, "Let's put race engines in skinny frames and let the devil sort it out." And that's how the most feared 2-stroke trilogy from hell was born: the RD350, the RD400, and the RD500LC. Let's start with the RD350. It was a 2-stroke twin-cylinder with 39 horsepower, weighing just 155 kilos. A power-to-weight ratio that made a lot of 80 superbikes look ridiculous. But what really made it dangerous was how it delivered that power. It wasn't gradual, it wasn't smooth, it was all or nothing. Nothing, 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 and then boom. The power would hit like a TNT explosion straight to the rear axle. There was an invisible wall on the tachometer. Before you crossed it, it felt like a twitchy scooter. Afterwards, it turned into a possessed beast. It would lift the front wheel without asking for permission. The frame, thin and basic, would twist with every burst of torque. And the brakes, well, they stop you, but you had to have faith. If you got too confident, if you underestimated it because of its size, it would slam you back to the ground violently. That's why, in many countries, it earned a nickname that needs no explanation: the Black Widow. A small, light, cheap, and completely ruthless motorcycle. If you didn't know how to tame it, it wouldn't give you a second chance, let alone a third. Do you think they learned their lesson with the 350? Not even close. They cranked up the power to 44 horsepower, added more torque, more low-end grunt, and wrapped it all in a modern design that looked straight out of a cafe racer catalog. It was faster, more aggressive, and even more treacherous. At first glance, it looked like a friendly bike, even elegant, but what it hid under the tank was a death trap with an angelic face. The RD400 had an even harsher power band than the 350. When it kicked in, it exploded. The engine would scream, the rear wheel would stretch out, and if you didn't react in a split second, it would spit you onto the pavement without mercy. You needed a delicate touch, strong legs, and nerves of steel, because if you leaned it wrong in a turn, braked just a little too late, or let go of the clutch the wrong way, you'd go flying like a slingshot stone. And since it was sold in white in many markets, the nickname came quickly, the White Death. A bike that looked pure, but deep down was pure evil. Yamaha said, what if we take this to the limit? Inspired by Kenny Roberts' legendary YZR500, the RD500LC wasn't just a bike, it was a declaration of war with the license plate. It had a V4 two-stroke engine, 499 cubic centimeters, and 88 horsepower. It sounded like a swarm of possessed wasps, and every time you twisted the throttle, you felt like the devil himself was pushing you with both hands. It had the soul of a beast, the body of a missile, and the mind of a psychopath. But there was a small problem. The chassis wasn't up to the task. It was built just barely good enough, like Yamaha had said, let it handle whatever it can. After all, the thrill is guaranteed. The suspension was soft, with unpredictable rebound. The brakes would practically start reciting psalms in Latin when you tried to stop. And worst of all, at 6,000 RPM, it hit the zone. There was no gradual build-up then. There was an explosion, a sudden, violent jolt that could throw you off completely if you weren't ready. It was a street MotoGP bike, but with no rider aids, no room for error, and no second chances. If you didn't know what you were doing, you'd better start praying to St. Peter. In 1997, Suzuki had a clear idea: to create a sporty V-twin that could go head-to-head with Ducati. They wanted a bike with character, with power from low revs, with that mechanical roar that would win over the purists. And they pulled it off, but they went a little overboard. That's how the Suzuki TL1000S was born, a V-twin with 996 cubic centimeters, 125 horsepower, and so much torque it would launch you forward the moment you touch the throttle. But it wasn't the power that made it dangerous, it was everything else. Suzuki wanted to innovate with a rotary rear suspension, a kind of monoshock with linkages that was supposed to improve traction, but in practice, it did the exact opposite. When you accelerated hard, especially in corners or over bumps, the suspension would compress unpredictably, suddenly loading the front wheel and causing violent jolts in the handlebars. The infamous tank slappers. That moment when the handlebars start moving like they're possessed and all you can do is hold on and hope you don't get thrown off. The frame was also lightweight, a bit flexible, and didn't always handle all that fury very well. And since the torque delivery was instant, very Ducati style, but without traction control or ABS, the front wheel was always in the air and the rear was on the verge of slipping. Suzuki eventually acknowledged the problem and installed a factory steering damper. But by then it was too late. The legend had already been born. The TL1000S earned the nickname Widowmaker, and not because of marketing. It was genuinely dangerous. If you knew what you were doing, you'd fall in love with it. If not, it would kick you straight to hell. And Kawasaki, the undisputed kings of high-performance speed, weren't about to stand idly by and simply watch as Suzuki attempted to completely dominate the global spotlight with the legendary Hayabusa and their other high-speed models. So in the year 2000, they launched their nuclear response, the Kawasaki ZX-12R. This bike wasn't just aiming to break 300 kilometers per hour, it wanted to humiliate the Busa. It was equipped with an inline four-cylinder engine, 1,199 cubic centimeters, water-cooled, and over 180 horsepower in its unrestricted version. Some dynos even showed 190 horsepower with the ram air system running at full blast. And it didn't stop there. It had a forced induction system, ram air, which at high speeds pushed more air into the engine, making it even wilder. A missile on wheels, literally. And if that wasn't enough, the chassis was an aluminum monocoque, stiffer, more aerodynamic, and more aggressive than anything Kawasaki had ever built before. Visually, it looked like it was designed by NASA engineers, and on the straightaway, it flew. The problem? The ZX-12R had so much power and such a violent delivery that at extreme speeds, over 250 kilometers per hour, the front end would lose aerodynamic downforce. Add to that stiff suspension, twitchy steering, and a very high rear end to improve stability, and what you had was a brutally fast bike, but as delicate as a wine glass. If you gave it gas without having your body properly balanced, or if you let off the throttle mid-corner at high speed, the ZX-12R would shake, snap at you, and it didn't forgive mistakes. It didn't have traction control, it didn't have ABS, all you had was your instincts. Kawasaki designed it to break records, and it did, but it also broke a few riders along the way. It was a beast, a bike that didn't give you any room for error. Either you mastered it or it mastered you, and trust me, you didn't want that. Nowadays, getting on a sport bike is like playing with a cheat code. You've got rain modes, traction control, ABS, anti-wheelie, quick shifter, and even electronic suspension. Everything is designed to protect you, correct you, and save your skin when you make a bad move. But back then, it was a whole different story. If you wanted a fast bike, you needed nerves of steel, reflexes like a fighter pilot, and your ego locked away, because these beasts didn't forgive mistakes. They were machines with no filters, no assists, no excuses. Pure raw power in a frame that sometimes felt like it was made out of gas pipes. Your teeth would rattle, your wrists would ache, and the exhaust would scream in your face. Do you have the guts? Hit the gas. They weren't made to last or to keep you safe. They were built to accelerate like the world was ending, to scare you, thrill you, and remind you that you were alive. Every turn was a gamble. Every twist of the throttle a leap of faith. And if you didn't know what you were doing, the bike would let you know in the universal language of asphalt and broken bones. Would you get on one today knowing there's no safety net, that it all depends on you, your wrist, and your cool head? No excuses, no salvation, just you and the machine. And if you do, you'll understand why, despite the danger, these bikes are still legendary. And if you want to know everything about the beastly RD500, the two-stroke demon, click on this video and I'll see you there.